Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Boston-based, Kansas City-born jazz guitarist John Stein. His new 2020 CD, John Stein Watershed Master, is another great CD and a long list of them for him. This internationally renowned jazz guitarist was born and raised in Kansas City and took up the guitar early on. His talent and love for the music ultimately earned him a faculty position at the Berklee College of Music in Boston, and over the years he has remained an experienced teacher, clinician, recording artist, and author. So please get to know him and dig this interview, my friends.
So on to happier things, John. Thanks for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz today. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, Joe, really. I'm excited to be able to talk about something more interesting, believe me.
Yeah, me too, for sure. I really love the album. You know, from the minute I put it in, I'm still kind of old school, so I like popping a CD in my chamber, and once it gets me and I go, I've been doing this long enough where once it grabs me, I'm in. I've really enjoyed Watershed. Talk to me a little bit about this album, what you were going for.
Oh, Lord, I don't know where to start. You know, it's just, I mean, this is my 15th or 16th CD, so it's just it's my latest group of tunes I practice. I used to go to Brazil quite often. I have a connection down there, and there's an agent that can put me into nice concerts. So I went, and Brazil for a while was really booming, so there was a period of time where I was going almost every year. I've probably been there, I don't know, 6 to 8 times. I forget now how many times. But then, you know, it got bad in Brazil like it has here, and for a long time, for about 5 years, I wasn't able to go. But last year I was able to the agent down there found a nice little concert for me. Actually had 2 major gigs, and there were three weeks between them. The first gig was right after I arrived, and then the second major gig was 3 weeks later. So I had this time in between, and I've been hoping to, it was timely for me to do another recording. It had been a couple of years since I did a recording, so I thought, well, I'll take the time in between these 2 concerts, and the musicians will be rehearsed, and we'll just be able to make another recording. And this is the second time I've recorded in Brazil. I did it earlier on, and this time particularly the studio was really excellent, and they captured the music really well, and then and the musicians are great there, you know. So they're people. Most of the musicians I knew from prior trips. The piano player, the keyboard player, was new to me this time, but the other musicians are very familiar. I knew the musicians were great, so it worked out just fabulous. I knew I could do a nice recording, and we managed to do a very good job. I think in the studio they did a fabulous job. The studio was technologically advanced and also was very comfortable. And I brought the files home and mixed it and mastered it here with people I know up here and near where I live. So when I'm doing a recording, I practice the music for a while. I composed music for the recording, and then I chose the tunes that I wanted to play that were not my own. And we did a few concerts down in Brazil and did the recording, and that's the story of it, really.
So you have Kansas City roots. Talk to me a little bit about your history here.
Okay, I was born in Kansas City. I lived there for my first 18 years. I'm very familiar with it. I still have family in the area. I have a brother that lives in Lawrence, and I have both my parents are gone, but their spouses, they were divorced, but their spouses were younger. They're both still alive. So I go to Kansas City not really often, but fairly often. I return. And a couple of years ago, I was able to play on the 12th Street Jump program. Mark Edelman brought me in to do that. And so I had a good time. I actually got a chance to play. I've played in Kansas City a few times. I played at the Blue Room years past. And so at any rate, I have Kansas City roots. I'm still kind of connected to the city. I moved away when I was 18 to go to college, and I did come back. I came back frequently, but I never really lived in Kansas City again. But I still come back from time to time, and I know I will. You know, my brother still lives there, and as I say, my elderly spouses of my parents. So I do come back fairly frequently.
So how did everything kind of, when you were younger, what jazz did you listen to? What really kind of lured you in?
My history is that I started playing music when I was very young. When I was 6, I took piano lessons for a year, which I enjoyed initially, but when I was 7, I switched to guitar. The reason is that I had a typical piano teacher, one of those old lady piano teachers in the neighborhood who had a whole bunch of students. And I loved it because I'm very musical and I liked playing by ear. And then as it became more oriented towards the page, the written music, I didn't like it as much. And so at 7, a year after I had taken the piano lessons, my parents got me a guitar. And they got me a really wonderful guitar teacher. Her name was Charlene Kunit. She lived near UMKC in a nice house right in that neighborhood. I loved it instantly. I loved her. She was, it turns out she's really a classically trained and vocalist. But at that period in her life, she had become fascinated with mainly folk music, and she taught herself to play the guitar. She studied the guitar pretty seriously, actually. And she did use the guitar to accompany herself. So as a child, she taught me, folk music from all kinds of different lands. And because I was talented at that point in my life, I had a nice little voice, child's voice, but she actually started presenting me along with her in some of her concerts. I got a chance to do that. So all my life, I just really loved music, and it was through her entree into it. She also taught me, not just folk music chords and how to sing some folk music songs, but she taught me some of the basics of, music fundamentals, the notes and so forth. When I was 11, she moved. Her husband was a librarian. He got a job teaching in the University of California in Davis. And so she moved out of Kansas City. And when she moved, I was also 11 years old or 12 years old and starting to enter my teenage years. I took 1 year of classical guitar lessons from a guitarist at UMKC. I did not enjoy it. So then I got a jazz guitar teacher. His name was Don Wenzel. And I think I took my lessons from some music store that he taught in that was in the old Ward Parkway shopping center or nearby that. That's my memory. It's kind of a distant memory now. And I took lessons from him for about a year. And then I don't remember how it happened, but I ended up studying with a Kansas City guitarist named Tommy Davis. And Tommy actually came to my house. He's one of those guys that drove around in his car with his guitar and went to students' houses. And I was, becoming a teenager and starting to go to high school, and I joined a rock band, and I got an electric guitar. I got my first Gibson guitar when I was entering high school, and I was in a rock band in high school. But Tommy Davis was the person who really started, and actually Don Wenzel did a little bit too. They started showing me how to play or how to harmonize standard tunes, which is all I've ever done since. And so through first Don Wenzel and then Tommy Davis, I got my entree into jazz guitar. But of course I was becoming a teenager, and then I went off to college, and that was the 60s. Because of my age, it was the 60s and the Vietnam War and everything else. So they were tumultuous times then in a different way than what we have now, but still a tumultuous period of our history. I guess I've known all my life since I started studying the guitar that I really wanted to be a guitar player or a musician, in spite of the vagaries of that career. But I wasn't that serious about studying. When I went to college, I had a guitar with me, and it was mostly under the bed or in the closet. But once in a while, or actually all my life, whenever I had hard times, it's what I gravitated towards. So I went to college first in Wisconsin at a liberal arts college called Berklee College. And I lasted about a year and a half before I dropped out in that tumultuous era. I really wasn't ready for college at that point in my life. And I spent the rest of my 20s doing various things, but always with the guitar. And by the end of my 20s, becoming clear that I really wanted to spend my life as a musician, and I started to actually study seriously. And at that point, I dropped out of college and ended up in Vermont. And Vermont is not very far from Boston. And also in that era, I used to read a magazine called Guitar Player Magazine. And Guitar Player Magazine kept seeing these articles where they're interviewing very successful contemporary guitarists who most of whom had gone to Berklee College of Music and then gone on to have professional careers. I kept reading these interviews with these people, like John Schofield and various other people of that nature who've had very successful careers. And I was only 2 hours from Boston, living in Vermont, so sure enough, I ended up deciding that I better go to Boston and study at Berklee College. So I did that in 1980, and I went to Boston, and I absolutely adored the college. Everything I wanted to know about how to make myself a professional musician was offered to me at that college. But at the time that I graduated in 1984, I didn't feel confident enough to really go to New York and try to make my living as a guitarist. And actually, for the first time in my life during that era while I was studying at Berklee, I was a very serious student because I was much older than I had been when I went to college the first time, but also at that point in my life, I really knew what I wanted to do. I wasn't just trying to learn about life and figure out what it was like to be an independent human being, but I really wanted a career. So I focused very hard at Berklee, and I was very successful. And when I graduated, they offered me a job. So I stayed at Berklee. I've never left until this is my final semester, actually, after all these years. So it's a total of 40 years of my life at Berklee, which I never imagined would happen, but when I went there, but that's what has happened for me. And it's bittersweet. I really like the college still. I enjoy teaching. You know, I am getting older now, and I feel like if I don't graduate, so to speak, from Berklee and see what it would be like to be a guitar player for a while, I'm going to run out of time if I don't do it. So I did decide to retire this year. This business that's happening with our virus has made my last semester at Berklee quite chaotic, unfortunately, but I am happy to be retiring finally from the college. Anyway, it didn't stop me from being a guitar player. It's like I said, this Watershed is like, I think, my 15th, and I've had 16 releases, but one of them was a reissue, so 15th release under my own name. So it's, I've done a lot of music, but I really want to concentrate now on playing and a little less teaching, so that's why I'm retiring. That's a lot of words. I'm talking a lot. I hope that's okay.
Oh, that's good. So why do you love jazz?
I guess it goes all the way back to those first guitar lessons with Don Wenzel and Tommy Davis. I love all music, really. There have been times when I was a real snob about jazz. I wouldn't listen to anything else. I've sort of gotten over my snobbishness. But why do I love jazz? Because it's challenging, and it's deep, and it's subtle. And the more you know, the more deeply you can get into it. But it's like any form of art. It's a form of human expression, and if you can find a way to express yourself through a very complicated and challenging environment, I enjoy the challenge of it, and I love the players who are able to do it. I've really studied all the musicians in the whole history of jazz, and I'm just trying to be the best musician that I can be. And here's the thing, I went to Berklee in 1980 to learn this stuff officially, and I've been thinking about this stuff every single day of my life since, and I'm getting better and better at it. But the fact is, it's like a bottomless well. However deep you can go, you can always go more. It's always a continuous challenge. So I really enjoy that challenge, the chance of, or the times that I'm able to do this with, especially with other people. I play all kinds of gigs with different kinds of people, from solo gigs to big bands. But I don't mind a solo gig. I like the chance of playing music. You get in the middle of a song and you just become part of it. Somehow you're expressing yourself through the medium of your instrument and the musical notes, the melodies, the rhythms. But I really enjoy the interaction when I play with other people too. It's like a communication. If it's at a high level, it's like a really deep conversation between two people, and yet you're doing it through the medium of the music. It's really challenging, and I just absolutely enjoy that experience so much. I can't tell you.
Everyone has a perception of you, your family, your friends, your students, fans, but you're living your life. Who do you think you are?
Golly, what a question that is. I'm not sure how to answer that. I love people. I love my family. I love my friends, and I love my students. I find them irritating when they don't do their work and all that, but the fact is, the reason I've been a teacher all these years, actually, some people teach because they need the money. They'd rather be playing. I guess if you're a musician. I mean, I would rather be playing too, but the fact is, fortunately for me, I've actually enjoyed my time as a teacher as well. So, and the reason is because I like helping people. I like sharing what I know with others. I like when the light bulb goes on. It's interesting. A lot of people come to a place like Berklee College because they want to be a musician, but they don't have any idea what it really takes to be a musician. They see the musicians on stage. They see what they do. They watch. I mean, a lot of people see music with their eyes, hear music with their eyes anyway. But in any case, they have imaginative vision of what being a musician is. They see the glory of the person who's in the throes of a great performance, but they don't understand all the work that went into that person getting there. You know, I have all these things that come to Berklee all these years who want to be musicians, and then when they get to Berklee, they discover it's a lot of sweat in the practice room, and it's a lot of theory they got to learn, and it's a lot of ear training they got to practice. And you know, everybody's different. Some people, it all comes easy to, but most people have to work at it. And even the people it comes easy to have to work at it if you really want to be good, because as I said, no matter how good you are, you can always know more. No matter how accomplished you become, it never stops. The challenges never stop. So the people who are great musicians are the ones that enjoy the process of working at it. That's really what it amounts to. So when I share this with students, and then when I see the students who actually get it, who realize, oh yeah, if I work at this, then I start to get better at it. And then they start working, and then they start getting better, and it's just this wonderful thing. So who am I? I'm just this person who enjoys the process, and I love sharing it. And of course, it's not all about music in my life. I mean, I have the same kinds of things just without the music with my family. I just like being with people and like to see them progress, and I like them helping me when I progress. I don't know. I really don't know how to answer your question. I hope
That's a great answer. You totally answered it. And I really appreciate you talking about the new album and your life and your time in Kansas City. Thank you for taking some time out for me today. Good luck with everything, and hopefully everything can kind of resume to regular programming at some point here.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Joe.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players and singers in Boston, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to John for his time, music, and stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit Neon Jazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.